times rapid inflation, like some economists out there are increasingly warning. So we need our voices heard that it may take at least a mild recession to bring inflation to heel. This is just how inflation works, full stop. It's not something that we want, it's just how it works. So at least we need to be getting these into our minds so that we can make informed decisions. And I'm going to remind you, in January 2022, the market consensus of financial institutions, all of their economists, their dominant position on inflation was that it would disappear by the end of 2022. Who here thinks that it's going to end by 2022? December. 6 months, disappear. This is why I'm so grateful that you're here, so that we can at least have a conversation that makes some sense and is built on some groundwork of I don't understand. I really don't. So what is their agenda? What's their bias? Why would really top-rated, amazing economists say this? And that I have not unpacked yet, truthfully. But I'm certainly thinking about it because it just doesn't make sense to such a degree that I'm concerned. And it's making me do this. And it should be making you do that too. That's okay. I'll lose my marbles so that you don't have to. I'll just get excited about it. So what you can do, I was thinking about this deeply. We have to have resolutions to this. So what you can do about it is apply. Look at this. So I checked it out. There is a profession called the central bank governor. This is actually a job, and these are the skills, and it's got the responsibilities. I got this from 123test.com professions, and I figured, gosh, could we do this? Could we do this? Absolutely. There's a ton of you on this call right now that would be absolutely qualified. And now, after today's call, for sure, you know how to determine monetary policy actions and manage inflation. So you're already ahead of the game. I think we could replace them. So I did take the test. Would I have a match? And I'm close, but not quite. I did come up with a match for an economist, but not for the governor. So potentially one of you will be that person, and that would be amazing to have. So in reality, if you're not going to apply and have your own job as a governor for the central banks, what you can do about it is invest. These are buy signals, and definitely hold signals. So these are very important times that we're going through. Turbulent and inflationary means traditionally is something that we buy. So very briefly, I'm just going to go through the rental market and property market, and then we're going to be getting into global investing very shortly. So rentals.ca came out with April 2022 rent report. And actually, you'll have to watch for it. The Real Estate Wealth Lab is going to be featured in their annual report. And typically, it gets out in January. They couldn't do it, so they're actually making it for the rest of the year. So we're going to be featured in that very shortly as an expert on predicting and forecasting what is down the pipeline for rent. So I'll just move over to this slide, which is helpful in showing where things are. Rents are going up. This is completely on track, what we expected, and it's upwards in line with the leading indicators last year that were pushing it. So that's all on track. Rent prices hit record highs for major cities in the U.S. Very similarly, it's moving up. I wanted to show this. This is the cities with the cheapest rents in America right now. This is something to be curious about, because you see these types of things, maybe you don't, but these kinds of headlines. It's like, well, how can I apply that as a real estate investor? Cheapest rents, what does that mean to me? And it could be a sign of doing more diligence, dump, or avoid. And the reason why is that you've got to look at it from all kinds of angles, is because return on investment matters in market analysis. So if you've got low rents, but you also have a really low property price, your return on investment and the affordability of that investment could actually be okay, especially if you have, the rents that match that property price, but you have a really, really good tenant base. And I see a couple of these, like a stream of a couple of these particular cities, like South Bend, Indiana, is Notre Dame, the seat of Notre Dame University. So student rentals there could be really fantastic. Or based on other factors, you need to avoid them. So in other words, when you see cheapest rent, you can think opportunity, but you got to do diligence, or go next and go where rents are higher. So what all of this means from rent data is that the current rent data is a hold signal. We're expecting, of course, rents are lagging indicators, and we're expecting that they will continue to rise for at least a couple of years. So, and always look at the specific data for your market. Now, with property markets, Canada's red hot housing markets hint at cool down as higher rates and inflation bite. Okay, these headlines, man. Okay, cool down, fall off a cliff. No, it doesn't equal. So we will be seeing these kinds of headlines, and we don't need to freak out. So this is a table of some of the Canadian home price gains by province. So if you think in BC, like on average, 24% last year. Kelowna was 23%. It was just under that, actually. It's interesting. Abbotsford was like way up there in like the 30 some odd plus percent, for example. And so those are not sustainable. And it's okay if they soften. So when it says cool down or all these things, relax. Okay. We'll tell you when it's really going to get wild if it does. So those are all hold and buy signals, buy, hold signals, you name it. In Western Investor Opinion, this was freaking awesome. I happen to know I don't know him really well, but I do know him. I've been working with him since about 2014, and he's fantastic. And this thing totally took me off guard. I didn't realize that this was his opinion. So kudos to you, Frank. Spare us the stupid ideas to fix the housing problem. So no cooling off periods, teeny tiny houses, punitive taxes, 500,000 suites for the homeless won't create more affordable housing in British Columbia. So after 5 years and all three levels of government trying to fix affordable housing, Canadian homes cost more than ever. And rents are high, record highs, and rental vacancies are at record lows. So these stupid ideas that have been in place haven't worked. And what the article is saying is like, let's just try some more, very facetiously. So how do homes become more affordable? And we started this earlier in terms of supply, fewer taxes and less red tape. So we need to get rid of rent controls, et cetera, and improve the way that we do things at that municipal level as well. So lots there to unpack. The frickin' article is a joy to read. So you've got that in your inbox today. If nothing else, it's a good laugh. Oh, but a smart laugh and punchy, packs punch. When it comes to the U.S., very similar for what's happening. The housing market hits a level not seen since the last bubble. Things are going up, et cetera, et cetera. But first-time home buyers, limited supply. And the long story short is what we're seeing for the property markets in the US and Canada is essentially a buy, hold signals. Just hang on in there. There may be, for the long term, there may be a potential softening in 2023 and 2024 based on immigration patterns. There may be a little softening a little bit further out based on inflation, deflation measures. So we'll have to just stay tuned for what that's going to look like. And Naran, I think you're going to come in here. I'm sorry I took you off guard there. Let me spotlight you, my friend. Oh, you're spotlighted.
I've already been spotlighted. Wow, that was a lot of info and great information. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my job at this point is to give Jennifer just a 30-second breather and see how all of you are. I was thinking to myself as I listened to this that, Jennifer, you started off your whole talk today on a statement that kind of stuck with me. Critical thinking, yes, critical thinking does not hurt. And in my mind, I went down a rabbit trail. Do you know when I find, in my experience, what I find is that people have angst in their life. For lack of a better word, I use the word angst. When they have angst in their life, it's because they subdue critical thinking for a statement that they believe that they should believe. And so between what they feel they should be holding to, a mantra, a statement, and their critical thinking, there's this space. And when people like you and I don't have the ability to explore that, encouragement to explore it, and to unpack it and research it, we then start getting a little antsy. And so I really want to encourage all of us to practice the art of bravery, to step in, to not wait for people to tell us what to do necessarily, but to actually start thinking. And, this is a smart room, and you are in the right room to be able to make decisions for your future that is far better than most other people. So anyway, it was just sticking in my head, and when I think
I appreciate that, Naran. Sorry to interrupt, but when you're talking about that in terms of critical thinking and not hurting, and being brave and critical thinking, and it's also cool to start your critical thinking at a level that's already been critically thought. Critical think that. So, in other words, by being here and in this room and having these conversations, you've already, now you get to critical think on a steak and not just on the bones that the media is throwing you. So I just want to say that critical thinking, to your point, Naran, it doesn't hurt, but it can take time. And so hopefully, at minimum, this research lab and our weekly newsletter helps you save time so you can already be thinking at a next level critical thinking level.
That's right. That's right. What's interesting is that when you talk about the people leaving Canada, I know some of the people that left Canada in the last little while, and what struck me is not, and I have no, Jennifer, you're the research whiz in this group, not me, but my observation is that the people that leave Canada are really high quality individuals who have the capacity to impact process, have the capacity to impact thought and next level thinking and leadership. And those are the people that we seem to be losing at this time. And that concerns me.
Naran, you speak exactly to what inspired actually this global investing special that's coming up next, is because there are many, many smart, yes, Tammy, you're one of them for sure, very intelligent, very interesting individuals, many of them who are real estate investors, and they're looking to partly leave Canada or at least explore other options. So I just want to be really mindful as we go into this next section, and I'll provide some context for that later. But really smart people. So
perfect.
All right.
So
Naran, shall I hit the slide?
You can hit the slide. Go for it. Oh, before you do, I believe we're going to play a video again. And if you joined us a little late, when you go to a movie theater, there are like trailers about what's coming next. That's what this is.
All right. Good to ya.
Perfect. Thank you. So there's lots of good things that are coming down in the near future. At Rule, just as a reminder, if you are joining us for the first time or just as a refresher, remember, you are getting weekly reports. You are getting expert commentary. We are seeing the macro market trends, and it's important to see the macro trends because it provides us with the environment in which to interpret our own niche and our own place. We have regular live digital events. We have city-specific market analysis, and we have masterminds. So excited to be here and part of this. By the way, these are, again, dates. If you joined us a little later than when we started, so just take a picture of these dates or a screenshot. And we also have something called the Rule Ambassador Program. if you are like me and you are excited about being part of us and us being part of you to journey together, you are more than welcome to invite your friends, your enemies, and people that you just want to bring alongside of you in real estate. Invite them to join our group, and we can actually send you a unique link for them to use, so that when they do purchase Rule membership with us, you will automatically earn a 10% credit towards your own monthly Rule membership. Okay, so just send info at Real Estate Wealth Labs an email, and we'll get you the link. Remember, there's a 30-day free trial going on, and like I said at the beginning of our call today, this is a really limited time period. Once the new things that we are hinting at come out, that 30-day trial ends. And I think
that sounds like an act now kind of situation there, Naran. Take action. Right on.
That's right. Info at Real Estate Wealth Lab. That's where you can email us, and we will get back to you. And I think, Jennifer, you are ready to get into introduce us to world investing.
Yeah, I am. This is definitely a Rule special, global investing. You have asked for it, so thank you for your feedback, and continue to do so, because we listen, and I'm excited. There's a couple of things that we're going to be talking about, even more of your feedback later on. So, and thank you. A page is just popping in there. If you want your referral link, your ambassador link, just email info@realestatewealthlab.com and share with your friends so that you can get your membership paid for. Makes sense? 10% discount, which is very cool. All right, so getting into global real estate investing, market selection. So before, how do I set this up? We were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier. It really depends on what you're looking to accomplish. Some individuals, and many of you are on this call, are either out of Canada already or wanting to get out of Canada, as in move, as in relocate. That's one way. There's also global real estate investing and market selection from a totally different perspective, and that's just diversifying. So I'm going to unpack a little bit of both of those today. But first of all, I don't know how many of you actually saw this that came out. It's how to select a travel destination. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I thought it was really cute. This could be your way of how you do market selection. Okay? And you just go choose a number between 1 and 9. You multiply it by 3. You add 3. You multiply it by 3 again. You add the 2-digit number. You get together. Your number is where you get to travel to or invest in. That is one way that you could actually do this. We have smarter ways for you to do it. Don't worry, we're going to get into it. And I remember filling this out, going, okay, well, what was it? And I'm just going to let you know that it is rigged. And if you check out number 9, this was at the very beginning of the restrictions for the pandemic. And number 9, stay at home, came up all the time. Nima, you did it? Yeah. A lot of people did it. It was really funny. It's not so funny. Yeah. So global real estate investing, your why. I'm not going to read all of that, but you get the idea. Whatever it is for you, this is your life, and you want to do what you love. And I know Allison likes the Caribbean, for example. Oh, there you go. I read your mind. Exactly. And Anita, you're loving the Florida destinations too, and lots of you that I've spoken to over the years and recently, of what you want to do. And so this is about creating your life by design on a whole bunch of different fronts. So I'm not going to be able to get through it all in 20 minutes. As you can imagine, global investing is a big topic, yes? Okay, so I'm going to give an introduction. I'm going to set the stage, and then I'm going to offer a couple solutions at the end for us to continue the conversation. So I'm pretty excited about that. So no matter what the answer is, this is what we need to consider on global investing. So another reason why is, and I love, this is a direct quote, not from me, it's from Kim Iskian from American Consequences, actually back from October. Newsflash, offshore done right is perfectly legal. In fact, you'd be foolish not to keep some of your assets somewhere else. So if we're looking at this, or you're looking at global investing, just from a pure business hat, it's smart. It's just about diversifying your assets, using offshore entities, or however it needs to work out. That's not always the case, but having something offshore is actually is a necessary instrument in any smart investor's toolbox. So there you go. Danielle, you are bringing up data the smart people of this world should be discussing hopes. yeah, that's exactly it. Perfect. And moving where the sun shines. So this is where, from a smart perspective, it makes sense to have diversification in your portfolio. Other reasons why is that when you have assets, and just kind of like unpacking that list a little bit further into so what? So assets in another country can have legal protection that you're not familiar with, or different kinds of legal protection, shield from unscrupulous associates or extortion attempts, basically offering a shield, ensure inheritance for descendants, provide security, reduce investment risk, and enhance property rights. It's just a couple. Diversification of all these kinds of things, whether you're looking at countries, geography. Think about geography, and kind of climate impacts. Some geographies just get hammered. I mean, hurricanes, cyclones, blizzards, Canada, and having different geographical areas. I mean, Calgary, how many more floods can you have? So having some locations that are in other, and hailstorms, oh my gosh. Again, these are things that you can actually take into consideration, so that you're looking at different politics, you're looking at different currencies. And again, all of these things just end up being hedges and flow together, so that you end up creating a fairly robust risk mitigator. And some diversification, yes, exactly, of where the sun shines and palm trees. This is also very cool. And different laws. So whatever your reason, if it's mitigating risk or diversifying or lifestyle or different kinds of options that you want to go to different places, or you just want to have different types of availability. And Catherine, exactly, go where you are treated best. That is we'll talk about Nomad Capitalist a little bit later. Nomad Capitalist is so he's got great information. And if you want to get in on his inner circle, it's upwards of $500,000. So there's ways to get out of the country, people, and there's ways to relocate and or diversify your portfolio. But 500K, if that's for you, go for it. Or hang out with us, and we're going to share a lot of amazing resources for definitely a fraction of the cost, and work it together. So that's kind of cool. So thanks, Catherine, for reminding me of that. And if you're looking at return on investment, but you also may be considering collecting passports and properties. So properties and passports, and you can do the two together. And again, it just gives you options and flexibility to go where you're treated best. So when we do look at market selection for global investing, a lot of the same things come into play. Yeah, you want to look at expanding, for the most part. You want to expand, have expanding GDP and jobs and population. All those leading indicators are still material factors. In addition to that, which we also do in all of our regular stuff, is we look at political climate. We look at currency, we absolutely do, but you're going to be looking at it from a different perspective this time. So you want to have all of these metrics and indicators that we always look at, and go a little bit further and a little bit deeper, because there's other things that factor in. Is it personal fruit? Is it lifestyle investing? Do you want to have passports and properties, or just properties? All of those kinds of questions. Why and where do you want to spend your time, if at all? You may not want to. You may just go, oh, it's smart to have offshore stuff, so I'll pop it in an account over there, have a little property, never go see it. That's fine too. So if you want to have, and Danielle, I'm glad that you're laying these questions, because there's a lot of them, and yes, I have checklists. So this is a good portion of them. It's a good start. So why and where do you want to spend your time? Do you want personal use out of it? If so, when do you want it? How much do you want to use it? So for example, let's say you wanted a place in Florida or Hawaii, but you wanted to use it at Christmas, but that's when you can get the most amount of money from it. Is that the best place for you? And how long? Do you want to be away for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months a year, or grow into retirement and be away even longer? Then we get into more questions that you have to ask. And I've got those in the coming slides. And how much return on investment do you need? You may want the property has to be an ROI. Well, then cool. Then you might want to do it through, for example, we had CPI Capital on, and they've got some great real estate private equity properties that you could get great ROI on. You're still diversifying your assets in the US, for example, and in different geographical locations, but it's a totally different investment. So again, but if you're not looking for cash flow or return on investment and you're looking for this lifestyle, all these factors have to come into play. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on it, but you can't go any further in this conversation unless you have a clear picture of what you want. And we have tools and calculators for that at the Real Estate Wealth Lab, so don't worry, we've got you covered there. This is feeling a little bit overwhelming. But we're going to start, normally I would start with GDP. And I'm not really going to this time because GDP matters, economic activity matters, and I'm not going to go and rate the whole world or whatever. I mean, all that data is available. But I'm not going into GDP because so much of this is about, back to these questions. GDP may not matter to you at this time. You may be looking to relocate from Canada because, and we've talked about, I'm going to be straight blunt here. We've talked a lot about the Emergencies Planning Acts in September, in October, in November, and how they potentially could, and then they were applied at the federal level in February, and how those could impact your property rights. And we've gotten legal counsel to give us information on that. So it is something to be mindful. And you might go, you know what? I just care about my property rights. And there's a different way that I want to live. And GDP doesn't really fit that. But there's all these other components and indicators and checklist components that I need to look at. So it's fairly broad. So that's why I'm not going into it. But of course, if we wanted to dive deeper, we absolutely free. And exactly, Vincent, the freezing of the bank accounts, which is why I thought it was so ironic that the federal budget had that whole claims, that whole independent, whatever it was, to for complaints against banks. Okay, sure. Tammy, for example, the UN signed document with Canada and Netherlands for digital passports to fly. See, all of these things, there's so many reasons. So obviously we can't get into all of them, but I wanted to give you a couple of places to start and some great questions, and then again, some potential solutions. So if you're looking at it from a currency perspective, this Statista has the global, this Big Mac index. I highly recommend going and checking it out. The whole thought process behind the Big Mac index is that, I mean, a Big Mac is pretty standardized. McDonald's food should taste the same around the world, and therefore it should be reflective of the purchasing power and of the currency. So there we are. That's kind of the thought process. And then consider where your money might go further. Buy more Big Macs, buy more houses. That's the concept. So now this is just the bottom end of the spectrum here. So in terms of how much it's cheaper to buy a Big Mac in Russia. Is it cheaper to buy a house? I don't know, but it's certainly a place to start. And actually, Russia, I've got some data. This is crazy. Russia, I am surprised, attracts a really high percentage of migrants. I will show you that very shortly. So as we get into population. So again, you want to look at the factors that you need to look at, but population is helpful to look at as well. It's a leading indicator. And what we are seeing is that there's actually, so this IOM UN Migration World Report just came out in April, and it's, again, really, really long, but there were some cool stats. So I tried to pull a few from it without overwhelming you. But what you can see in 2000 versus 2002, the estimated number of international migrants, like in 2002, that's massive. And I believe that there's incredibly pent-up demand. People have been barely able to leave their houses for the last 2 years. So in terms of moving and relocating and things like that, there's a demand, and there's also all these other components that we were talking about of reasons why people might want to. So the estimated portion of the world population who are migrants is actually only 3.6%, but it's up significantly by percentage and by millions, and we're still not even really fully into into freedom, if you will. Like, there's still a lot of restrictions, and I'll show you that in a moment. I think it's going to be soon. So where are they coming from and where are they going to? Now, this is helpful, so you can see that the US, is a column on the left, is the highest locations of destinations where people go to, and then on the right is where people are coming from. Now, why that matters to you, it kind of maybe doesn't, except for the fact that if people are moving into a nation, that is a leading indicator of rents and real estate property values. So therefore, one could deduce that that's a possibility that their real estate could go up higher than others. That's a possibility. Another thing, and I think I've got it on another slide, so I'll just say it here, is another thing is that if people are moving at high numbers to these locations, they may be more likely to have the infrastructure in order to support processing you, theoretically. Or they could be so backlogged that a visa takes 9.5 months to process. Just saying. Still not done. So, those are other things that you need to take into consideration as well. So with the population, and I wanted to show this in terms of COVID-19 government restrictions with travel, because travel affects your ability to invest globally in some ways, not always. Like if you're doing it yourself, then yeah, you got to be there, or you've got to have a power team, or if you want to relocate for your global investing, that's different. If you want to do it and not do it yourself and have a private equity firm or a REIT, for example, Aurelio Baglioni's REIT at Bertus, his is in the US and Canada, so you can get in there and be diversified without having to leave your chair. That's pretty cool too. So global investing does not have to be as complicated as this, which is a lot more do-it-yourself kind of version. So I just want to be really mindful of that. But at the peak, 185 countries imposed international travel bans right here. And that's pretty significant. And you can see that it's going down. In July 2021, 65 countries had internal travel bans. So, okay, there's still mobility problems. And it also reflects that pent-up demand. That's a lot of people who have not been able to really move as much as they have wanted to over the last little while. So then the population for these, sorry, I got distracted, Tammy. I was reading your question. So let me just read it. So also that can be a bonus and drawback with delayed infrastructure. Exactly. Depending on your goals, it really, really definitely depends on what you need. That's okay, Tammy. It's all good. I love it. This is interactive. So I appreciate it. So when it comes back to the population with these travel restrictions, again, where can you go? So look at the gray. I actually went mapping. I was like, no measures. What is that? And I started going and trying to find these little guys on the map. And I was surprised by a couple of them. It was very interesting. So where can you go? And this is, again, it's useful when you're considering do-it-yourself global investing and those reasons. And again, changes, these could have changed since then. Changes in the rules are always happening, so we just got to be mindful of that. And various, Anita, do I see Costa Rica with no measures? No, Anita, you don't. You do not. I know. Haha. And in fact, I've been doing some research on some Central and South American locations, more specifically. So Central and South America have not. I've done a little bit of research on Europe. I'm getting ahead of myself, but a little bit of research in Europe, and of course in the US, a ton of research. And I'm getting quite excited about all the possibilities, and where I thought might be amazing is a little bit less so, depending again on what you want out of it. But Costa Rica is definitely on the list. So when we look at this, I love this table. So this shows the share of international migrants, within each country. So as you can see now, if you think about this, if they have a lot of migrants in their country already, then they might have, again, more of that infrastructure to support. It might be backlogged, as we talked about. It might be easier to navigate. It may be more open and amenable to foreigners. But on the flip side, there's a lot of countries that are really open that don't have a lot of foreigners at all in their mix. Again, look at the gray areas with the very, very, very light blue areas that don't have a high percentage of migrants, but who need and want the income, the money and the economic activity that would now create. And so they may be offering incentives, which many countries actually are right now, to help bring individuals in. And Catherine is saying that Mexico is fairly easy. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. And that's on my list too. I'm giving them all away. International real estate investing team. So let's get into it. From a team, this is again more from that do it yourself, but even as a don't do it yourself, like if you're going through a REIT or a real estate private equity firm, they're going to have the right infrastructure. And if they don't, then run away to support you in determining your tax accountants and things like that. You don't have so much to worry about with regards to attorneys so much, unless you're setting up a trust or whatever. But as it comes to global investing, tax accountants, you need one in your home country, you need a cross border, and you need a local, like local, in whatever cities, and I say cities or counties or regions that your property is in, or your assets or whatever have you, you absolutely must have a local one. And then they need to all talk together. Huh. Thank gosh for Zoom. I just renewed my account. Attorneys. So you need tax, corporate, real estate, estate planning. Again, depending on what you want. But I just want to rewind a little bit to tax attorneys. Who here has heard of a tax attorney? Yeah, okay, good. Lots of people. See, you're all sophisticated. And we've got, it's fantastic. So tax attorneys, they do look at things very differently. And so if you are looking to relocate, then you definitely need one of those. So very, as opposed to if you're just looking to invest, you know, outside of Canada or whatever, or outside of the US, you may not need a full tax attorney, but you'll need some definite like corporate planning and trust and things like that. So property management, flexible, international, do it yourself. So for example, like if you're going to do a property management on your global real estate investing, how are you going to do it? I can tell you, I've tried setting up some systems and they did really, really well, but I brought in, unfortunately, a team that just didn't quite cut it. And it made things really challenging. And for those of you who have not heard about Tenant Cube yet, you must come out to our next Market Leaders and Community Lab, because Tenant Cube offers a crazy product that's going to super be helpful for this kind of flexible, international, do-it-yourself, inexpensive property management and support. And then if you don't want to do it yourself, then you're going to have like local and whatnot, so you won't have to worry about that. Financing, traditional, private, cash, should add that. There's some locations that only cash. What is that going to look like? And your realtors, again, there's a lot more on this investing team, but this is going to get you started. And basically having other like-minded investors, such as this group in this community, who are interested in learning more and actually taking action on global investing. So real estate ownership, can private land be owned by a foreigner? Oh my, what questions to ask. Are there communal lands that are actually tax attorney? Yeah, Anita, I've got a recommendation for a tax attorney. I have not, yeah, anyway, I can get that to you afterwards. And that actually, I love that you asked that, Anita, because this is something that I'd love, and I'm going to propose to us, that I'd love for all of you here to come to the Community Lab June 15th. Because at that Community Lab, we're going to be designing how the Community Lab operates. We talked earlier about masterminds that rule, or breakouts that are really intended for individuals.